So hi there, today I'm installing dot and dab insulated plasterboard over the top of Permagard membrane and then onto the existing brickwork. So if you read the manufacturer's instructions, it tells you that you need to do a continuous dab all the way around and across the bottom, and then intermittent dabs at about 600 centres all the way down the board. Now part of the reason for it to be all the way around is to help with air tightness in insulated properties, but also it just makes sure you've got a really good fixing. Now because I'm fixing to the Permagard, I'm putting extra dots because I'm putting a dot over each one of these fixings, which is the fixing guard point for the Permagard, because what I don't want it doing is pulling against the product. Now the product has got this sort of mesh to it that allows to help the anything stick to it where you're sticking over it. And the good thing with this Permagard system is you can go over the top of it with any kind of system. Here, if you want to screw buttons to the wall, if you screw through the centre of the plug, you can screw a button to the wall without compromising the product. Personally, I'm not a fan of sticking battens between the insulation and the outside wall, because if you do get any rot going on, you've no idea that there's rot going on until you start smelling it, which could be too late. You know, it could create a bit of breeding ground for dry rot, in my opinion. However, the manufacturers do say that it is perfectly fine to fix treated battens to the walls. If I was going to fix any kind of battens, I would be using a metal system, because the worst thing that can happen is it goes rusty and it's not going to damage any more of your system. So I'm going to continue dotting this. And one other thing, again, when you're fixing insulated plasterboard, they do recommend that you use knock-ins so that you've also got a mechanical fixing to the wall. So at the end of the job, I will be fixing some knock-ins into the wall. So here you can see that I'm using drywall adhesive and I'm applying it to the wall using a trowel. And I'm doing a continuous bead all the way around each board. And then because I'm fixing to a Permagard damp proofing system, I'm putting a dot on every one of the fixings to make sure it gets a good fixing and it's not fixing to somewhere flexible. As you can see, the brickwork has a kind of shiny looking texture to it, and that is because prior to doing the dot and dab and the damp proofing work, I've pressure washed the wall so that it's as clean as possible, but then I've treated the wall with SBR, and SBR is very, very similar to PVA. However, SBR doesn't soften when it gets damp. The advantage of that is if any damp does come into the wall, it's not going to debond. The disadvantage is you're supposed to then put your next product on whilst the product is still tacky in order to achieve a chemical bond. So there are pros and cons to using SBR. Other products that are suitable for that kind of application, you could use something like blue grit or green grit, which seems very, very similar to SBR, but it's got a gritty texture to aid mechanical fixing.